Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, we are honored to welcome 3 remarkable guests: Rick Mountcastle, Susie Singer Carter, and Don Priest, the team behind the film No Country for Old People. Welcome. Thank you all for rejoining us to talk about this very important film that you're working on. And before we get started, for our viewers and listeners who may, for whatever reason, not be familiar with your work in the film, I'd like to just take a moment and have each of you introduce yourselves and share a little bit about how you became involved with this project. And first, we'll start with you, Rick.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon, Lance, and thank you for having us. Again, my name is Rick Mountcastle. I'm a retired federal and state prosecutor, and for the last 2 years, I've been a producer on this film project, No Country for Old People. In my career as a prosecutor, I guess my claim to fame is that I was the lead prosecutor on the case against Purdue Pharma involving OxyContin. And I was portrayed by Peter Sarsgaard in the Hulu limited miniseries Dopesick. And through that exposure, that 15 minutes of fame that I've gained from that miniseries, I ended up meeting Susie Singer Carter through her podcast, Love Conquers Alz. That led to conversations and a series of events in 2022, all of that unforeseen on my part, where we ended up in the late summer, early fall of 2022, talking and deciding we needed to do something to change how the system, the long-term care system, works, and that things have been going on for decades in the same way and have only gotten worse. And so we talked about how to use media and film and storytelling as a way to bring about positive change in long-term care. So that's, in a nutshell, kind of how I've become involved in this very important and very worthy project.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Susie Singer Carter.
Yes. Hi. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. And I'm Susie Singer Carter. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm also an advocate for quality elder care, long-term care now. This is my mission at the moment, and also been a advocate for people living with dementia and Alzheimer's for about 16 years prior to this new turn, which still incorporates the same kind of mission, but just extended it a little bit. So I started. Did you want me to talk more about the film now, or
if you'd like to, or
to say that? Yeah, I just start the film. The film that we're talking about today really came out of my own experience with my mom the last 6 months of her life, and you know, this is what has motivated me to produce this film and really get some education out there to the public, so no one is sucker punched like I was.
Right. Thank you, Susie, and thank you for all the work you're doing. We'll next go to Don.
Well, my name is Don Priest, and I'm a producer and editor, and actually co-editor, because Susie's editing right along with me the whole time, every second on No Country for Old People. My background, I've been a producer, director, editor on commercials and music videos and documentaries for decades now. And this project, No Country for Old People, because Susie and we're best friends. We're like brother and sister. I mean, we are family, and her mother was like a second mom to me. And so when I watched the horror that happened to Norma and to Susie, I mean, it touches you in a way that you can't even describe. And when Susie decided to, at the behest of Rick, to create a cautionary expose about what happened to her, so it doesn't happen to others, I had to climb on board, and it's been an incredibly moving, difficult experience so far, but worth every second of it. And can't wait to tell you more about it.
And I know when you guys were on previously, and I've seen it several times since and before that, you know, the trailer that you had shared. I mean, I don't know how anybody could not watch that and be touched or moved significantly. I mean, this isn't a fun fluff documentary. This is the real deal, like what goes on that families aren't aware of, and in hopes of, by this film, it will lead to changes and people becoming more aware of what goes on in these long-term care facilities. I want to go back to Don, though. Don, if you're talking to somebody and they know nothing about senior care, health care, and maybe you just run into them at a Starbucks and you get talking about what you're doing and you bring up you're working on this film and you tell them, yeah, it's called No Country for Old People. And they say, well, is that like a sequel to that Hollywood movie? Like, is it a prequel? What is No Country for Old People? How would you explain it to somebody that has no background?
Well, it's interesting because I had no background before starting this or before seeing what happened to Susie and Norma, and we didn't know what was happening while it was happening. And it wasn't until, you know, Rick actually said on Love Conquers Alz, this is not just happening to you, Susie. This is the system. This is how it works. This has been happening for decades, and it's happening every minute of every day. And what's happening, I mean, without getting into too much detail, is there is a system that is set up, and it's legal, but it's being gamed to a point where private equity companies are going in, they're buying these nursing homes, they're, you know, in chains, and they're taking the system of Medicaid and Medicare that's supposed to go towards the benefit and of the residents, and it's flying right into their own pockets, and it's buying jets and it's buying mansions. And I know it all sounds very dramatic and spectacular, but it's happening. And that's the problem. And it happens, and it becomes neglect and abuse, and then eventually death to our loved ones and to our most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think that's in a very, you know, elevator pitch nutshell.
Yeah, I think that's a great nutshell. I want to go to Rick. So, Rick, you know, the film is a result of kind of your encouragement to Susie and, you know, your background. And, you know, you said your 15 minutes of fame was from, you know, Dope Sick, but that wasn't the largest case you had or the biggest takedown, if that's the right expression, that you had as a federal prosecutor. Maybe it was state prosecution. It really goes to Abbott Laboratories and Depakote. Is that accurate?
That's correct. That's accurate. And actually, the Abbott Labs case involving Depakote is sort of the bridge from Dope Sick to Susie Singer Carter.
Okay.
And how we came together, because in the last episode of Dope Sick, there's a very brief mention of the next case that Randy Ramsire and I did involving the pharmaceutical industry after Purdue Pharma, which was the Abbott Labs case. And that was a case in which Abbott Laboratories was doing what's called off-label marketing. They were promoting it outside of what they were authorized by FDA to do, promoting a drug called Depakote, which is an anti-epileptic, which was not approved by the FDA as being safe and effective for use in the treatment of agitation in dementia patients in nursing homes. But they were taking that and exploiting that market, because at the time, and for many years, there was no drug available to treat agitation in dementia patients. And nursing homes were looking for something easy, like give them a pill that'll keep them quiet, as opposed to using their staff to do things to help those patients through maybe a difficult time or a period of agitation. And so Abbott Labs came in and said, well, we've got this drug called Depakote. One of its side effects is somnolence. Basically, it'll put them to sleep, even though it has no medical benefit and is not proven to be safe. So they began promoting it, and it became, they made billions of dollars off of that. And so our office, working with various state and federal agencies, and I was with the U.S. Attorney in the Western District of Virginia at the time, we went about investigating and prosecuting that case. And we ultimately, it resulted in both a criminal and civil False Claims Act prosecution, resulting in a total recovery of over $1.5 billion, which was at the time the largest recovery from a pharmaceutical company involving a single drug. And so with that mention in Dopesick, Susie, I think, as I understand it, watched Dopesick, saw that mention about the Abbott Labs case and Depakote, and contacted me through social media about appearing on her podcast, Love Conquers Alz, to discuss that case, which I did, and we spent a pretty lengthy time talking about the case. And then we kind of developed a conversation via email and social media about things that she was going through at the time with her mother. And then so that developed into a conversation where I was trying to tell her, because I had also done a case involving a nursing home owner and prosecuted a nursing home owner under the racketeering laws for basically in federal court, in the federal system, we use fraud, but prosecuting them for fraud using the racketeering laws involving how they were running a nursing home. And the outcomes that were happening with stage 4 pressure sores, neglect, abuse, all of those outcomes were things that Susie was experiencing with her mom. So I was able to take my experience and spending a good 5 years investigating that case and explain to Susie what she was seeing, why it was happening, and what was going on, and making suggestions on how to fight that battle.
Wow. What is your involvement? I know you're co-producing the film, but what is your hope for this film? For what is your hope that it will accomplish? Are you coming at it from your prosecutorial background? I'm hoping this film will, lead to prosecution, so to speak, of these facilities committing wrongdoing, or
no, not at all, because I spent years, maybe decades, working in the healthcare space, doing both federal, state, or federal criminal and civil prosecutions. And so these are one-off cases. And what I saw was that nothing changes. It's the cost of doing business, basically, for healthcare industries, long-term care, and others. So it came to me that we have to do something to change things, not just prosecute these one-off cases where somebody writes a check and everybody goes along and it's business as usual. So there are literally, I think, billions of dollars being spent by healthcare companies to lobby Congress, to lobby elected officials and other politicians who are in positions involving positions of policy making and enforcement to keep the system the same. So how do you combat that to make change that benefits people, that puts people over profit? The only, as Susie puts it, the only currency we have are people. It's got to be a grassroots movement to bring people together, to expand the community of people who know what's going on, who see what's going on, and who don't like it and who want change. So how do you reach people in this day and age? It's through media, social media, it's through film, it's through reaching out and touching their hearts through storytelling to bring people into the fold to demand change. So it's much more than let's go prosecute a few criminals or a few bad guys. It's we've got to change a system. And how do you do that? We want to reach out. We want to expand our community and bring people into a movement that demands change.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rick. Susie, I want to go to you. you had this conversation with Rick. You know, you were going through the horrible experiences with your mother. You decided one day to make a film about it, to try to advocate for this change and bring awareness to the situation of what families like yourself and even myself deal with nursing homes. Or what was your thought process there? Because it's a big mountain to climb, to take an idea and then, as you've shared many times, to now make a film, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like pushing the rock up the hill. And, I think that you can't look at the breadth of the scope of how big it is. And, you just have to say, I'm going to do it, and then start doing it. You just have to start doing it. And I think the confidence for it came from a short film that Dawn and I did called My Mom and the Girl, which was based on a day in the life of my mom as someone living with Alzheimer's, and when she was living with me. And I really wanted to use storytelling, like Rick said, to show a different perspective of a disease that has a lot of stigma to it. And I wanted to show what I had learned, and I wanted to show that you can find joy, in the dark places, and bring light into the dark places. And it really was very successful for us in a way that it touched people and it resonated, and it still does to this day. And I thought, well, what can I do? What can I use of my tools in my toolbox that I can, continue to touch people, continue, because that for me, that's the best we can do. And so I didn't think of like I said, the scope of this project, because it is quite big, and it's a huge responsibility in a way that I threw my gauntlet down. I said, we're going to do this, and now we have to deliver. It's like getting a lead in a movie, and you go, I'm so excited now. Oh my God, I have to do it. Right. So now we have to do it, and we are doing it, and we have done it. And I'm very proud of what we've done. We have got the most preeminent voices that have been in this world of reform, nursing home reform, for decades. And I hope that we haven't left a stone unturned. I don't think we have, between my my tenaciousness. Dawn will be poor Dawn. and then there's Rick, who doesn't leave any stone unturned. I mean, thank God for Rick and his experience. Like, he has vet everything that we bring to the table. So I think that we have a wonderful project. Now it's, how do we get people to see it? How do we finish this project and make sure that everybody sees it? And like Rick said, we really need to create a grassroots movement. That is the way to get major change. And when, like Rick said, we've got lobbyists who are, very, very instrumental in keeping our bills and regulations that should be adhered to, not for their own benefit. What other choice do we have?
Right.
We have no other choice.
What if, now you have a background in Hollywood and film, as does Don, and I'll open this up to both of you. You might have different answers. What have you found to be the most difficult process for making this film that maybe you didn't expect or anticipate going into it, or maybe you did?
Oh, I'll jump in real fast on that. I mean, there isn't a film that is easy to get made. That's just it. Films are very difficult to get made. I don't care who you are. You could be an A-list, actor, whatever. You read the stories, you know how hard it is. This one was particularly hard because it's a social issue that nobody wants to look at. It is the opposite of sexy. It is the opposite of happy. It is the opposite of fun. It also scares people. So we're talking about ageism and ableism, dying and getting older yourself, looking at life with real glasses, and especially in our industry, that is the opposite of what we do. That's it is not where we want to live. And so it is very difficult to get people on board and to say, and I mean, this is our next hurdle. I mean, we're not a salacious project, and that's unless you are sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or some kind of amazing murder, you're not going to. It's just not what's in the zeitgeist right now. But I think that's the hardest. And raising money is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. That's in any project in Hollywood. But in particular, this kind of project. So on top of this gigantic mammoth, topic, then we have to deal with raising money as well on the side. So it's been a challenge. It's really challenged all of us for sure.
Well, yeah, the money side, it's, I mean, I have friends who have plenty of money, and and you talk to them and they may have, helped the lady, contributed on our last film, and you tell them all about this and they go, oh my God, that's amazing. What an important project. Good luck. And that's it. And that's what you get. Good luck. We applied for grants all over the place. And what we get back is, this just doesn't fit with our, whatever. It's just, it's because it's not sexy. And sometimes we know that there may be conflicts. There's a lot of private equity out there. There's a lot of people with big money that are on boards of different places and probably are part of some of these grants. And, we literally had one this is their mission was this, but the board looked at it and the board said, no, we just can't get involved with something like this. And, because there's a conflict. And so that struggle to raise money has been far beyond what we thought it would ever be, far beyond.
Really?
And it still is to this day.
Can I just add that, though, that said, we have raised a terrific amount of money that to me, it's the most money that I've raised on my own, without a huge production company behind us. So I want to shout out to everybody that's been supportive, because we've had some amazing support too, like angels and people that really believe in this project, and from young to people in their 90s who get it and are vibrant people and want to see change. So on the other hand, it's a beautiful thing to see people step up.
What have you guys been doing so far to raise the funds? Just reaching out to your network? Because I know you're also backed by the Consumer Labor Board. Is that right? Or
it's the National Consumer Voice for Quality Long-Term Care, and they are a nonprofit. They provided us a 501c3 profit status, so that when we collect donations, it is 100% tax deductible. And they have been rallying for quality care since 1974. So it's their 50th year anniversary. No, it's 75. It's next year. It's their 50th year anniversary. And that's telling right there.
Yeah.
They've been right. So they've been lobbying for quality care for 50 years, and they're still doing it.
And I know we had spoken back this winter, Susie, and weren't the three of you just recognized at a big gala in New York not too long ago?
Yeah. You're talking about the Cantor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, the Cantor Fitzgerald. Yeah.
Yes, with the National Consumer Voice. So Cantor Fitzgerald, chooses every year they do a charity day in honor of the 9/11 disaster, and they choose a select amount of charities or projects that are existing, and you apply for it, and you have to bring a celebrity along with you, and it's almost like a telethon, and you go through a day of stock exchange, and they raise money, and your celebrity raises money on the phones, on the floor, and it's really exciting. It's really fun. I mean, we had Anna Sophia Robb, who was the lead in a film that I wrote and produced called Soul Surfer, and she came, which I know that film.
I'm going to ask you to say hi to my kids in a minute, because they were excited when they heard I was going to talk to you. You're the A-list celebrity in our house. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
Well, if I didn't have my background on, my Soul Surfer posters right behind me, so. But yeah, so Anna Sophia was fantastic. On the floor, she kicked butt, and Nicole Kidman was there, John Hamm, and who else was there, Rick? Do you remember?
Oh,
All kinds of
Keith
people.
Urban, Rosie
There's
Perez.
Rosie
Yeah.
Perez, but there's a lot of other people, but they just shuffle you from floor to floor, and then they have two offices, one downtown and one I don't know. I'm not a New Yorker in the main area. Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like
There's one up in Midtown and one down in
Midtown.
Wall Street. Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, what I was going to say is that despite how difficult it's been to raise money, I think the good part of it, the silver lining of that, is that we have raised a sizable amount of money from relatively, a whole diverse group of people in relatively small amounts. And so we don't have, this is an independent film. We are committed to telling the truth and not spinning it one way or the other. And we're able to do that because we basically, the three of us have basically worked our tails off to raise funds from different places. So there's not one big fundraiser that or funder that we're beholden to. So this is a completely independent, funded by people, funded by our community project.
No special interest or influence.
No special
That's
interest.
correct.
And we are committed to showing the unvarnished truth about what is going on and what has been going on for 50 years.
Can I just add to that, Rick? Because there was only one grant that actually stepped up and they were very interested. And Rick was like, no, And I won't say what it is, but I was like, what? When he was like, no. And so what he's saying is the truth. Like that's how dedicated we are to telling the truth, so that we have the freedom to say whatever we want. And so whatever's in the documentary is true, it's real, it's happening, and we're not, like Rick said, indebted to anybody.
Right. Has there, just out of curiosity, has there been a change in any of your perceptions when you or Don were going into the film, Susie, and maybe you take something to Rick and with his background and experiences kind of quote unquote re-educated you guys on it?
Oh, yeah, the whole thing is an education for me. Every single thing about it has been, and I continue to learn. I mean, it's just unbelievable that all this is happening in the background. Yeah. And it's just hard to believe, and it can be very it can be demoralizing. It can make you feel like almost feudalistic and nihilistic, but then you have to say no. This is how hard things get changed. It's like one of our interviewees who is just lovely, this geriatrician, Alan Power, who said, and we have it in the documentary, but he said, it's angry mothers that created MAD, right? And really created a change in that. And now we need angry daughters to make
daughters from hell.
Daughters from hell. And I'm like, sign me up, because that's true. Like, you think you don't have power, but we do. We have the power to make change. It could be hard. And like Rick always says, it's not a one and done, but let's get started. Let's make this change already. We can't do traditional advocacy. It's not working. It just isn't working. It might feel good. It might feel like we're pushing the needle, but we're not.
Yeah. Where, I believe you're in post-production. Is that where the film currently stands at right now? Which I understand post-production doesn't mean it's done. It just means you're now putting it all together. Or explain post-production, Don.
Yeah, well, we're right now, post-production is a huge thing. It means even the second you finish shooting, which we are actually going to conduct another interview this afternoon. We're still, we tweak, we go, we need something to say this. Let's call one of our experts. And on they come, and because most of our interviews are done virtually in this. We shot, I think, 10 interviews live in person, but most of them are done virtually. So it really gives us we're very, very nimble in that way. But post-production, it's the editing process, it's the sound, it's the music, it's color correction, it's all those things, but we're still tweaking the substance of this right now. And so that's where we're at. We're editing and still molding there will be one day where we say that's it. I don't know when that's going to happen.
It's never it. It's the most fluid process ever because you have all this material and it's like a big chunk of clay, and then you've got all the clay that you love. You've grabbed it all, and now you put it together in like sort of like this shape. Now you got your shape, and then you look at it and you go, oh my God, it's so big. Now we really got to chip away at this. And then we start chipping and chipping, and we think, and just when you think you're done, you walk away. You come back a day later, and you go, oh my God, what we were thinking. And so it is that process.
Yeah, and it is a very fluid process that literally moment to moment, like literally yesterday, Susie said, wait a minute, that interview really needs to go here. And once you put it there, then there's that chain reaction of everything that happens after that. Wait, did we now, so it is a puzzle that we're basically doing a puzzle with no box that shows us what the end result will be.
Right.
and trying to find those pieces and put them in place every moment of every day.
Because it's different than a narrative in a way. A narrative like Soul Surfer, you have your story, you have your blueprint, you know where you're going, and you just want to tell a story that moves, right, or that makes people laugh, whatever your goals are. But this is like this is our one shot, and we want to make sure that we make an impact. So the responsibility of doing a documentary like this it's daunting. But it also requires that you keep going back and saying, are we saying this in the most impactful way? Are we saying too much? Are we just saying too little? Is this, who says it the best, right? Who is going to communicate it the best? And so it's all those elements that you learn as a filmmaker that Rick learned as an attorney, because it's not just similar. I mean, what attorneys do, I'm finding there's a lot of parallel in what we do, and creating stories and trying to impact people with how you tell the story. And so that's where we're at now. But the ball of clay is really tight right now.
and the other complicating factor is are current events. So, for example, recently, as we're speaking, Congress is contemplating legislation to prevent CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, who oversee the nursing home industry, to prevent them from imposing any kind of minimum safe staffing standards. So that is a very new development, and we've had to look at things like that and say, well, is that something we need to include? How does that play into the product that we want to show? How is that part of the story? So this is an area that is ever evolving. And so we have to make decisions and take that into consideration. But it also helps us by emphasizing how important this film is, because you have these forces at work. The nursing home lobby is out there as we speak, working to thwart any effort to make change by doing things like asking Congress to pass legislation to prevent the imposition of safe staffing standards. That gives us a little more fuel to get fired up about how important this film is, because the narrative that the industry is pushing to support that is a false narrative. They've got plenty of money. There are studies that show that the nursing home industry, there's a recent study that shows that the nursing home industry is siphoning off up to 60% or more of the profits out secretly in a way that they don't show up on any cost reports. And then they're turning around after taking 60% of the profit off the top without anybody knowing it, and telling Congress that they can't afford to pay for minimum staffing. So that story has to be told. So that's got us even more fired up about how necessary and important this film is.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk about funding for a minute?
Yeah, yes.
So, what if you had to put a figure on it? What funding do you need to complete the film?
Well, to the dollar right now, we did our math and we said we need another $86,000. I know that sounds a lot, but it's not, it really isn't in the scheme of things because we've raised over that already. We raised, I mean, transparently, we raised 120,000, or is that it, Rick, around there, a little more or less?
Right, it's roughly $120,000.
Yeah, which is, and we've made that money go a long way. And now, this is really probably the most expensive part of the project in terms of, what it's clearing all of our material. It's clearing, and especially in an expose, we have to make sure that, everything that we present is corroborated. So, and you have to have a fair use attorney, and you have to have insurance for that, and you have to get your music licensed. You have to get your composer paid, and your mixers and your colorists and all that stuff. So that's what we're talking about, that money. And that's the minimum. That's without us getting paid. Yeah, we put a lot of sweat equity into this.
Yeah. I mean, Susie's been on this project, and Rick also, for coming up on 2 years. We're in our 11th month of editing right now.
Wow.
And with probably, by the time we're all done, we're probably looking at another 2 to 3 months by the time we're, at the finish line. And so, yeah, it is a long process, and we're working, 6 to 7 days a week.
Yeah, this is the team, folks. This is it.
Yeah, this is it. This is the whole team.
This is our team.
If you look at most movies and you see the string of crew and staff and all that stuff, our credits are going to be the shortest credits in Hollywood history.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at it.
Yeah.
But we've had some other support here and there for sure, but this is it. And so, we're trying to be as lean and mean as absolutely possible. But boy, there's still, there are costs.
There's things that we can't do. We've tried to do it.
You can only be so lean. Yeah.
Yeah. And we are lean right now. Yeah. But there's things that we're doing that, we're doing the graphics on this. Well, we're not, that's not our profession, but, get it done. If it needs to be done, we'll get it done. And that's what we're doing.
Yep.
Well, we want to send viewers and listeners to your fundraising page. What's the best method or course for them to go who want to help contribute and, lower that goal for you guys?
Sure. I mean, you can go to the National Consumer Voice for Quality Long-Term Care's website, which I'm sure you can put up, in graphic.
Put it up on the screen.
Yeah. And, if even if you just go to their landing page, there's a link there. We're on their landing page, and then there's a designated, the link that you'll have takes you right to where you donate. If you go to any of my social medias, Susie Singer Carter, on any platform, you'll find a way to get to there. I make it I'm very blatant about that. And so you'll find it. Oh, you can go to GoFundMe. We prefer you don't. We did it because I don't know why, but if you feel better doing it that way, that's fine too. It's just that they take money out, and which they should, but we'd rather get more money and give, 5% of it goes to the National Consumer Voice, and it keeps, which is wonderful. So it's a win-win if we do it that way.
And I want to remind people too, it is tax deductible. Mm-hmm. It is a nonprofit contribution. And I'll just add too, on All Home Care Matters website, we built a really nice page for No Country for Old People. So if people are more familiar with going there, they can go right there, and then it will take them right to No Country for Old People, as well as Love Conquers Alz as well. What if somebody's saying, I really want to help, but money's tight? Are there other ways that they can help you guys?
Yes. I'll jump in, and then you guys can tell me to shut up. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if you can help spread the word, if you can post or repost any of our posts on your social media. We had that with my mom and the girl. I had people that I didn't even know that. I remember one girl in particular, she'll probably be watching this, Kimman Miller, who said, I want to be part of your village, but we don't have the money right now. And I said, well, that's fine. You're part of the village. Just, give us some support. Well, she has been the most supportive person out there. And we just got a lovely donation yesterday from her for this. So, I mean, and I, but she helped, spread the word. And, that's all we can ask for, and when we start this movement, if you're so inclined to help direct this, help man it, help captain it in your area, we'd love that, because we need all the help we can. We need a village.
Yeah.
So that's how you can help, and all help.
Yeah, and I want to say something, and I got this from Rick, so I'm going to give him full credit for this. And is that even if you do not care about old people, even if you do not care about vulnerable people, even if you don't care that this may happen to you, you should care that all this money that these owners are pocketing is paid for by you, by your tax dollars. They're taking your tax dollars and putting it in their pocket and abusing and neglecting and in some cases killing our loved ones. And so even if you don't care about that, care about that part of it. And, and we should all be, people, oh, you're angry. Well, we should be angry, but we're trying to be angry in a way that benefits everybody. We're not doing this for ourselves. We're not doing this. Because Susie's already gone through it. Susie could have walked away a long time ago and said, that was the most horrible thing. I am done. But she's not doing that. And so I just want people to take that.
She wants to avoid other people from going through the same thing she went through. And I just wanted to add on that, Don, and I'll let you finish your thought. Even if you don't care about old people or any of, all the things that you listed out, you should care about yourself, because all of us at some point, it could be today, it could be tomorrow, or it could be 30, 40 years down the road, we're all going to either end up in a nursing home or some place where somebody else is going to be responsible for taking care of us. And we need to have a better future than what we have presently.
Absolutely. And unless you're absolutely wealthy, if you're one of the top 1%, God bless you. But most of us are not. And so, yeah.
Lance, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You're all home care matters, right?
Yes.
And so, a lot of people that are in social media see my post. Some people respond like, well, why didn't you take your mom out? Why did you leave her there? And we were thinking, I thought maybe you could answer that in a better, more eloquent way than I have been trying to explain why sometimes we can't take our loved one out. And I think you might have a good answer for that.
Well, I will try. One of the things that got me involved in home care, because I was pursuing medical school, is my wife and I are newlyweds, and we get a phone call from a home health care nurse saying, we have your father here, and he had developed a very bad abscess on his coccyx from a fall, and that abscess burst, which led to infection, which got into the bloodstream, got into the bone. So he had major surgery. I don't know that any of us here on this call could properly clean and bandage a wound in that area. And my father was trying, because he was, the Marine Corps mentality from the 60s, which is a lot different than it is today. And so he came to live with us. And we were glad to have him there. There wasn't a problem whatsoever. And that was a 2.5 year care process of 24-hour care. And I don't know the situation with your mom well enough, Susie, but for us, we would have kept him there for the next 2-3 years until he passed. However, his needs exceeded what we could provide in the home, so there were no alternatives. We couldn't hire a registered nurse to come in and provide IV antibiotics every 4 hours or 8 hours. We couldn't have a wound nurse there, for his shower and for the wound changes. So we did the best we could up until we couldn't provide the care he needed for his well-being and what was in his best interest. So he had to go into a facility.
Thank you. That's exactly what I love that. Thank you for saying that, because that is in a nutshell. And I know people don't understand because they don't know.
Because they haven't gone
you can
through
take
it.
your mom. Why didn't you take her home and take care of her there? If you loved her, you could learn how to do those things. We can. It's beyond our expertise, and it would actually put them at harm.
Right.
And so, and the issue, I just want to add one more thing. And the issue about, we'll move them to another facility then. There is no other facility to move them to.
Well, and I would add to that. So with my father's situation, he ended up having 8 major surgeries on that area. It was very gruesome, very grotesque. I'll spare us the details. But after the last surgery, it became very evident there was no alternative other than going into a facility. Well, by that point, my father had to go on Medicaid because it was going to be indefinite, facility, inpatient facility care. So when you are a Medicaid recipient, facilities legally, and Rick can jump in if I'm incorrect on my numbers here, they're supposed to provide 2 Medicaid beds per facility. But facilities don't like taking Medicaid patients. Why is that? Because the reimbursement is minimal compared to what they could get for private health insurance or Medicare. My dad already exhausted his private health insurance. He didn't get Medicare because he had a government job. So he didn't get And so we shopped and we tried to find the best quote unquote Medicaid facility that would take him, because you call the nice ones and none of them are nice. Let's just get that out in the front right now. But all the ones that had good ratings, I should say, they claimed their Medicaid beds were full. Well, were they or weren't they? They say that to avoid taking a Medicaid. They want to keep that bed open for somebody that's going to be paying a lot higher reimbursement for their stay there. And nobody's going to check to see if they're being honest or truthful about it. The social worker discharge planner is just saying, oh, I'm sorry, those were all full, but I found this one. It's this little hole in the wall and, they got a hole in the roof and it's leaking, but they'll take them, in fact, and why I'm so passionate about helping you guys, other than, I think you guys are all tremendous people and doing, God's work. With my father, shortly after he went in there, he was very abstinent. He did not want to stay in a facility, and I did not blame him. He wasn't an old man. He, had this wound that I say that's it. That's what ultimately had taken his life because of the infection ran out of control. But, and we just said, Dad, as soon as you get this better, you can be on your way, And again, he has this mentality of a Marine where, unless it's a bullet, you can't stop me. This is just an infection. I don't care if you had to cut off, half my tailbone. I'm fine, Well, my wife and I, this is before kids, we go to her company Christmas party. And we come home and we usually go to bed 9:30, 10 o'clock. We're not late night owls. Well, I'm in the living room watching the news, and all of a sudden I hear a car door. And I'm like, huh. Well,
oh my God.
I didn't think anything of it, And then I see headlights, and I'm like, what is going on? So I look through our blinds, and I'm like, that guy looks like my dad. Surely not, So I go tell my wife, I'm like, I think my dad's in the driveway. And she's like, what? So we go out there, and I took a picture of the man's license plate. He called one of his buddies to pick him up and said he got discharged, and he's getting in his car, which he was keeping at our house. He's getting in. The facility had no idea that he wasn't in his room. And so, we had to call the police and all this stuff. The facility called the next day, the administrator, and said, we're going to self-report. We don't need you to call. And we said, okay, that's fine. But I'm in just disbelief that how could a patient, when, it is a nursing home, and after visiting hours, they do lock it, and that's just for safety because they have people with dementia and everything, and they let him go out, and they never thought anything of it, that he never came back in. Now, if we weren't home, he would have taken off, gone back to his house, and he most likely would have passed away because of the infection. He was getting IV antibiotics, 2-3 times a day indefinitely to try to, beat down the infection, and it ultimately did not work. But, but that just goes to show you the oversight, the regulation, and really it just gets down to the human decency and the care that they have for these individuals in these facilities. It's just non-existent. Like the facility my father was in, it was owned by a group of businessmen as an investment, not as a way of improving anybody's quality of life. It was to improve the bottom line. And, right. I just think there's also something to be said for, these are healthcare facilities. They should be regulated like they're a healthcare facility, to the extent they shouldn't have businessmen making decisions who know nothing about healthcare, controlling the bottom dollar and, how things are operated. But that's just my opinion.
No, you're right. That's one of the main problems is that, what these corporations are doing, it's not, there's no transparency. So what they're doing, no one's looking up. No, you can't even find them for the most part. It's really difficult to find who the real owners are.
Well, and I will say, Susie, the one my father was at, anyways, he's been gone now 7-8 years, and it has changed names at least 3 times that I know of. And I would almost guarantee it's the same owners. They're just putting up a new name to change and get the bad taste out of the name of the last facility,
100%, 100%. And what happened to your father is a direct result of understaffing,
right?
Because staff is your biggest, that's your biggest nut, right? So what are they going to cut down on staff? I mean, that's why they fight so hard on that. And had there been enough staff, there's no way your dad could have left.
No, not at all. Not at all. And it would have been a whole different conversation if we hadn't have been home also. I mean, liability, and I don't even want to think about it, but it's just a shame because that's just one story of one person. I mean, now multiply that across the country and all the different facilities.
Yeah.
Well,
your story.
Yeah, we have so many people say, "Oh, yeah, but that's just that's a one-off. That's the minority of things." It's quite the opposite. It is not. It is the majority. And I also want to say an important byproduct of this project, and it's a big part of it, is that it's not just opening our eyes to what's happening and starting a movement. Without it being boring, there's a very, very high educational factor in this.
Right.
When Susie was going through this, she didn't, it wasn't that she was in the forest and didn't know where to go. She didn't even know she was in a forest. She had no idea that all of this was happening around her. She had, and so what we're trying to do is open people's eyes to, if they're going through it, to recognize the things that are happening. And sometimes you may or may not be able to change them, but there may be small things, little things that turn into big things that you can prevent. And we even say, yes, let's start a movement, but boy, if we could even save one person from suffering or one person from dying unneeded, then we've done something that's really important. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think when people watch this, they'll go, they'll recognize things. They'll say, wait, that's why that's happening. Maybe I can stop that or prevent that, or at least let them know I'm aware of it. So that's a really important byproduct of this project.
Absolutely.
And just a quick note, Lance, maybe to piggyback onto the story on a sort of a side note. The Medicaid, the case mix is what they like to call it. They like to have a certain number of Medicare patients because Medicare pays more than double what Medicaid pays. But the Medicaid payment is not chump change. Okay, it's the average Medicaid pay on a long-term care facility is $250 per day per patient. That's $90,000 a year. Now, tell me what kind of care we could go out on our own and get for $90,000 a year. But these facilities with 50, 100 Medicaid patients getting paid $90,000 a year can't provide sufficient staffing. The reason is because they're skimming out, more than 60% of the profit to the owners through these related party transactions without any requirement that they be transparent about it. And then they turn around and say, well, Medicaid's not paying enough. We can't have minimum staffing. We can't provide the care that's needed. We can't hire people. We can't pay them enough. That's all a lie that needs to be exposed because, when you say Medicaid, it conjures up it's low budget, it's very low. No, it's $90,000 a year that they're getting paid per patient, per Medicaid patient in their facility. And that's plenty of money.
Real quick before we close up, guys, Rick, question for you. Have you ever had a whistleblower from like a long-term care facility come in and blow the whistle on basically what you just shared?
I have not had a whistleblower to talk about that. Now, we have interviewed a whistleblower in a case, which is a whole different story. But the the financials, there are people out there like Ernie Tosh, who's uh, a lawyer out of Texas who has been looking at the nursing home industry and filing civil suits for a long time. He has gone through and created a database that shows all the ownership, the trail of ownership through all these facilities, and has attempted to try to identify the related entities through which these various owners are siphoning off the money. So it's a very well-known phenomenon. Everybody knows about it that has any kind of connection to looking at the industry. I don't know that the general public knows about it. I think Congress probably knows about it, but turns a deaf ear or turns a blind eye because they're getting paid so much in campaign contributions and lobbyists coming through. But it's a very well known. It's been studied. Data has been analyzed by many different experts that talk about these related party transactions that the government is not requiring them to report. And then that drives this conversation about, well, are they getting paid enough or not? Okay. The whistleblower we talked to who ended up, basically getting screwed and being very much concerned about her safety and her position in the industry to the point where she wanted to be, have her identity concealed. Being a whistleblower is a very tough thing. In any business, but especially the nursing home business. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of money at stake, and people who have hundreds of millions of dollars at stake are not shy about trying to do bad things to people that want to blow the whistle on them.
Yeah, and and I think which touched me on a personal level is the fact that it was an 11-year case that took that long to settle. And it settled for a very large amount, and then they filed for bankruptcy. And so all of the pain and suffering that she went through as a whistleblower, she felt so defeated that and her morale was just at a minimum. I mean, she just said to the point where she said, if I told my daughter if she sees anything bad, just keep on walking because nothing's going to change, and that's so sad. I remember breaking into tears when she was saying that because it's just, that's how strong this system is. So, but we can be stronger. We have, we can make our own group mentality. We're very strong as a collective.
Right. Right. And I would imagine, and maybe this isn't an accurate portrayal or assumption, but I would almost feel like, big pharma would support, big healthcare. Big healthcare would support big pharma. So it's not like you're just taking on one of them. It's kind of a tandem. So it's not just one that you're going up against. It's multiple. Would that be accurate, Rick? Or
I think that's accurate. Yeah, it's the whole healthcare system, and then you have different segments. And so what we're looking at in this particular film is the long-term care segment. But you could do a similar expose about every other segment, from hospitals to pharmaceutical companies to the hospice business, to the dialysis business. There's the corruption, the putting of profits over people is rampant throughout the healthcare business, and so. I would encourage folks that if you can't, even if you can't support us financially, do so. But if you can't, begin educating yourself. Go to the National Consumer Voices website. They have webinars. They have papers that describe the long-term care business. There are organizations that are now starting to sprout up that talk about reforming the whole healthcare industry, the healthcare as a whole. I would support those kinds of organizations that are looking for ways to put patients over profit, as opposed to the current dynamic where money rules decision making. I would recommend those kinds of proactive things for people to do. And then once we get our film out there, and we get a movement, we get a plan for a movement and for people to come together, then support us when we do that.
Absolutely. Well, we'll support you guys.
I was just going to say, Lance, you're right, though. They're all crossover, and there is relationship between hospital and nursing home and hospice. Yeah. They work very well together. And so there is something to be said about it. We do talk about hospice in the film because that's where my mom ended up. But, we stayed away from the hospital's relationship, but they certainly work together to make it very, very, it's very.
And the pharmaceutical companies pay rebates to the facilities, to the nursing homes, based on which drugs are on their formulary.
It's dope sick all over again, right? I mean, they come in, get the doctors to push.
Yeah, they're all linked together because they have services, and so if the hospital refers a patient to a hospice, they get a little bit of a little bit of a kickback, and on and on and on.
Yeah. Well, Don, Susie, Rick, thank you guys so much. We are looking forward to supporting you in the film however we can. I encourage our viewers and listeners, go follow you guys on social media, Love Conquers Alz, Susie Singer Carter, No Country for Old People, and we'll put the links to the fundraising on the screen as well as in the show notes. And I just want to thank all three of you again for your time and your friendship.
We can't thank you enough, Lance. Really, we really appreciate this beyond that we can say.
We love you,
Lance.
You're welcome. Susie, one favor to ask before you go off. Can you say hi to Kennedy, Kendall, and Maddox?
Kennedy, Kendall, and Maddox, hello. And thank you for loving my film. It just makes me so happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Have a great day, guys. Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you again to our friends Rick Mountcastle, Don Priest, and Susie Singer Carter, the team behind the film No Country for Old People. We look forward to seeing you again here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.